Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Roll Insight. Here we are. I believe this is episode 8. So let's do our gimmick. Let's roll Insight. That's a 5. Getting very, very bad rolls so far. Maybe the last one will be a nat 20. How cool would that be? Yeah, so welcome one and all. I'm your humble GM, Joshua MacGregor from the Hidden Realms channel. Of course, not the only one of us who is a GM, and soon I will not be doing any GMing on the channel, at least for a couple of weeks, because, of course, this is the penultimate episode of Roll Insight, and we're going into our last episode of God Heist for the moment. This season is going to be coming to an end, and I feel like this is all I talk about on this channel, but as with most of the decisions for crazy, unexpected things, this is due to outside of the game stuff. I'm going to be doing work. I've got work. So I can't be doing the days that we've been doing the God Heist, and so it seemed like a good way to clear out my schedule a little bit to give this a conclusion, and it's worth noting, I think, that this show has had first it's worth noting that the show has had some hiccups in terms of everybody's life outside of it and what we've wanted to do with it not being quite able to match what we have been able to do with it. The other thing that's not on a negative note to note is that this choice would not have been made if I didn't think we had a reasonable shot at getting a conclusion for the season in. There are obviously a lot of plot threads that have been set up and things that need resolving. However, the main conflict, that being the conflict with Henua, I think can be resolved in this next episode. So we're going to do that. We're just going to do it. And everybody will be level 8, which means there's no real canonical reason that they're going from level 7 to 8, but finale, get an extra couple abilities. That seems like a good thing to go in with, is a little bit of a power boost. I have designed an enemy encounter for the end. Hopefully it is epic enough. It'll certainly be epic enough in scale in terms of descriptions. I just wonder if it will be epic enough for the players, which is one of the main things. I've got a lot of thoughts about how this will conclude in terms of the invading armies and different things to give to the different characters. I don't know where they will want their characters to go in terms of an epilogue, assuming that they survive. But this will be a big final battle, and this is not the end of the God Heist storyline. This is definitely not the end of the stories involving Vulpikar and the 10 Kingdoms of Zygalia. There's a lot more planned than we have gotten to, and definitely a lot more planned that I was planning on getting to even before the end of the season. So what we are going to do is, obviously Mark will be continuing his Curse of Strahd game. I am definitely going to be part of that on Saturday as my last one for the moment, although fingers crossed I will be coming back to that for little cameos here and there, which would be very fun. Um, I don't know what's going to be happening on Fridays, whether Antonio will pick that up or what will happen. I will not be participating on Fridays at the moment. I know that on Wednesdays there are some plans, and those are the things that we're going to be talking about more after the finale is done. Um, but we're definitely going to have a dark week in terms of Wednesdays and Fridays, Friday content before we get into that. But there's definitely more thing. There are definitely more things. You know what? It really like. Can I go on a little tangent after I finish this? There are definitely more things in the works. My little tangent that I wanted to go on. Forgive me. I just got a little something. I just got to pick out. There we go. There we go. My little tangent was that the use of theirs is such a ubiquitous meaning of there are, that the abbreviation as is commonly spoken in like common parlance being theirs, that is truly so frustrating for me, and that is not high on my list of problems in the world, just annoying, just on the level of being annoying. And I wanted to share how annoying that is, and now I've shared it. It's been so fantastic. Like, I in spite of a lot of the difficulties involved with God Heist, I think a lot of those have actually been blessings in disguise. Things with people not being able to make certain days, or wanting to switch characters, um, or wanting their characters to die because they have to do other things on a Friday now. Um, these things are things that are not great in terms of like they're curveballs, but learning how to handle curveballs has been a huge part of this experience, and the result for the story has been very cool. Um, Antonio, I would of course have loved to see what happened with the surgeon had the surgeon lived longer, but the storylines that we have in place for the surgeon being in Avernus and going forward from that perspective, and mixed with the fantastic job that Antonio has done playing Riodon. Um, I I'm actually I'm actually really pleased with the way that it turned out. I couldn't imagine this story uh, working as well as it has done had Antonio not started playing Riodon. This idea that we kind of have Whatsit, who is this devout worshiper, and becoming, this outcast who never really was part of his people, who is now becoming like beloved and chosen of Grumsh, and is leading his people on this holy quest. Um, and on the flip side, you have Riodon, who's kind of born into this connection with Pelor, who is devout and does care about his people, has always been accepted. Um, and him leading his people, which is now extended to be a lot of the other peoples of Grindia as well, at least in this mission. Um, Having those two very important figures from Cygalia in the mission is huge. It's big. It's a big deal, uh, and it's been really cool for the story. Similarly, I think Alice Vane betraying the group. I'm kind of glad that dynamic didn't continue more than it did, where everybody was just openly at odds with each other. But Alice Vane's choice to make that like official and like fully like go for it and betray the group, and now Alice Vane is out there working with Darefell. I think that was a great choice, and that got us Ulden. It means we don't get as much time with Ulden this season as we would have done. But Ulden's uh, sheer utility in terms of getting them into the teleportation network, but also that character motivation, wanting to know what happened to the the exalted wardens, why Arawa has not been able to do what he said he was going to do with the tree and all of that with Glaimerosa, um, and having that empathy for the gray orthodoxy, what before they were corrupted by Henua, is really big, because there is a natural tendency, which I completely understand, and it happens in most D&D games, where the bad guys are the bad guys. And one of the things I wanted to instill from the beginning of this campaign, especially if you go back to episode 3, this is a big thing that I was trying to instill, is that the gray orthodoxy are good, like are meant to be gray. They're not meant to be, you can paint them with one color. The idea behind the orthodoxy is that this is a good organization. This is a good group of people who are being manipulated and dragged down an evil path by a fanatic. And that seems to me, historically, and we can see it happening in the world. I mean, we can see it happening in the world today. We can see it in history. We can see it, obvious example is Hitler in the Second World War. Is the first people that Hitler had to conquer were the Germans, right? He had to convince the German people to do all of these horrifying things, and a mixture of threats and bribes and fanatical ideology mixed with the circumstances of the times, the hardships imposed on them after the First World War, allowed this horrifying manifestation of evil to flourish. Not that all German people were evil, quite the opposite. And I feel like most people aren't evil. It's just people can be dragged into evil, and by evil into evil deeds. And that's that's definitely what I wanted to explore. Henua is, and if you look at things from Henua's perspective, she's an entirely sympathetic character. And that's the way I think, I'm going to blow my own trumpet a little bit. I don't mean it in this way, but I think all compelling villains should be entirely sympathetic from their own point of view. But in a fantasy story like this, should also be hateable, and you should want her dead. And that's something I worked really hard on behind the scenes, and obviously in front of the camera, to get with Henua. Is that Henua is this young, well, she's not young anymore, but she was a very young woman who was born into this horrifying conflict, who wanted to put right the wrongs that were done to her and done to the few people that she cared about. And when the opportunity came to flip the script, she became the best hunter of those seraphs, of the armies of Seriphiel, of the remnants of the god armies, of anyone. She enacted retribution, that kind of revenge that is justified. But of course, the failing was not caring about what comes next, right? She is the sword, and it was up to other people to try to put the pieces back together again. The war never ended for Henua. Henua's still in this conflict in her own mind. And the Cygalians showing up, I can't say too much, because I don't want to spoil things for the finale, right? But what I what I will say is that the Cygalians showing up was an excuse for her to she was always going to keep fighting. I don't think she's capable of stopping at this point. And that's the tragedy of that character, is that her own hatred so fuels her that she can't conceive of anything different to do with herself. She can't conceive that there are other things that could drive her than her hatred. And so without the Cygalians showing up when they did, which was the result of Lacarian growing up and becoming an astronomer and trying to go home and subconsciously knowing where that was. But without the Cygalians, she would have turned her attention towards Darafel. She would have Darafel's armies rather towards Garazan, who ended up being Citugel. Of course, who knows how that conflict would have turned out had the Cygalians not showed up, because of course they exposed Citugel's plot to get Darafel out, but at the same stroke, without them distracting the Grey Orthodoxy, who knows if Citugel would have thought it was prudent to make their move then. So, if this is insight from me, but like if I was running this story without the main impetus, without the main drive, which is this contact between Cygalia and Vulpikar, between these two very different worlds, it would be a conflict between probably the heroine of the story, Henua, right, who's dealing with some well-intentioned but ultimately ignorant pirates in Alistair's crew, who is going up against the vestiges of an evil army who are intent on bringing back their god. And who knows what that would have ended up looking like. But that's what the conflict would be. The conflict would be the resurgence of this old power trying to free Darafel and trying to reclaim the power that the Grey Orthodoxy took from them. Cygalians coming on board gives Henua further placement of that anger that is outside of the world, outside of Vulpikar. Suddenly she not only she lives for the fight, man. She's got these people down south, and she's got these people coming through portals to her world. And she's going to do whatever it takes to save her people. And she knows the Exalted Wardens are more powerful than her, and if they know what she's doing, they're not going to approve. But she has to do what it takes to save everyone from invasion, from insurrection, from the vestiges of these armies. Like, this is who she is. She's the one who gets things done. And if, the tragedy is, if she could drop that rage, if she could find something, if she could find, a love of somebody, or a fulfillment in herself that didn't rely on her anger, which will ultimately never sate her, then there would have been a possibility for her to to be a more conventional heroine, to be somebody her people already look up to her, right? To be somebody who could be look up to and also be a moral um, pillar for her people to rally behind. Um, I can't speak to the other forces at work in Volpikar because there are a couple more that have not been explored and will definitely be explored when the show comes back. Because I'm not willing to let this story go. I've got so much more to tell. There's so many more interesting places to be and things to do in terms of the story. Fantastic. Like there's a lot in these two worlds to explore, and the overarching narrative of contact between worlds, and especially all of this. I've done a lot of world building and info dumping over the course of this first season. Um, Not a lot of which has been explored in a very concrete way, but there have been things, I can kind of go over some of them now, that have been talked about. There's uh, this fleeing from an old conflict, which is mentioned to have been the beginning of Cygalia, this kind of very young world, only 670 standard years old. This planet with its gods has not actually been around for very long, um, and that's because everyone on it was a refugee. The tree talks about scattering from the old war in order to survive, and that's where the Hoiken, the Lacarian, became scattered, trying to find new places to flee to. Um, there's a lot more to that. Volpikar used to be part of this old empire. That's something that Ulden actually remembers. That's something that the Exalted Wardens actually remember before the war was being part of this old empire. Right on the fringe, like right on the fringe. Very much a backwater kind of world. So there's a lot there, and there's definitely a lot of stuff with the Accord and with Cygalia, um, that has been left for later. But this choice feels good for me as one of the creatives behind it, as probably as the world builder behind it, because it means that when we come back, whatever that will look like, with whoever is part of the adventuring party that time, we can come at it with a lot more liberty. We won't be as opposed to there were two options. We could have gone on break for a few weeks and then tried to come back to God Heist, or we could end the season. And the reason ending the season is the right call is so that when we do come back, we're not fettered to a storyline that we're all kind of forgetting, um, and trying to make something cohesive with a very long break in the middle. What we're instead doing is putting a cap on this phase. Big fight with Henoa, resolution of the capture of Pelor. Those are the big things that need to get done on Sunday. And we will definitely do those things. The resolution of this quest that the heroes were sent on right at the beginning, to go through and free Pelor. And when that quest is resolved, we can come back with a different impetus that we can think up all together. We have these two different worlds that we can more fully explore, which would be very cool. There are some surprises in wait. There are some teasers for future storylines that I have planned. But we can really hit it from whatever angle we want. We can hit it with new characters. We can hit it with uh, the same characters in different situations. Um, we can skip ahead a couple of years and see how things have changed. There's a lot of room for things to be whatever we need them to be, if we end it now. And so that's a lot of the thinking behind this choice. Yeah. What has been the biggest, I think, talking a little bit about what's going forward for the finale, what's been some of the biggest things on my mind are some of the most trivial things, the things that don't actually matter a huge amount. Um, the things that I worry about are like, oh man, I had things predicted going a different direction. How do we close the distance gap between the bad guys and the good guys? Like, how do we um uh, yeah, how do we just get the good guys and the bad guys fighting each other? But magic is a thing. It's so not worth it. If you know what I'm talking about. Um, I think I'm just gonna have the bad guys teleport in. Just bunch of bad guys. Um, and it's sloppy writing, but it gets us where we need to go. And in terms of storytelling sins, story structure sins, I rank that as one of the lower ones. So I'm not too worried about that. I have to tell you as well, I ran a one shot yesterday, for a bunch of the guys, for Neil and Morgan and some other friends, and just use straight stats out of the monster manual. And by God, running spellcasters is so difficult that running this one shot was the easiest thing I'd done in ages. And I was just so amazed at how easy it could be to run combat, that I was just like, maybe I don't make an entire world of wizard enemies next time. Man. Yeah, that was an ambitious thing that I tried to do, but probably was a mistake. So there. um yeah, I'm really excited about this finale. It's going to be big, it's going to be epic. Big a la, we've had some big moments before, like the escape from Ward El Kar had some big stuff, like cinematics going on in the background, and we had the fight with Suta Gel in episode 8 where Thano died, which was big in the same kind of way. And so I'm just kind of going like, let's make this as epic and awesome as humanly possible, and a good send off to this initial part of the story. And we'll come back, and it'll be good. It'll be a good place to cap off for the moment, and it'll be a good place. It'll be a good place to end it so we can pick it up again, and answer some of the dangling questions, and see where things go. Because I know some of the things that I want to have happen, and they're really cool. It would be a real shame never to come back to them. But we've got this channel now. We're not going to stop putting things on this channel after all the work we've done to create it over the course of these last few months, where we've had a lot of time to do that. And we are always working on little improvements and distributing our content as widely as possible. We've got Antonio working on updates for the thumbnails and all kinds of fantastic stuff like that. So there's a lot of exciting work that is going to continue to go into the channel, as well as many. I know there's nothing quite like an ongoing campaign to hook people. And Neil is, well, again, we'll talk about that afterwards. But while there will be a degree of transition and one shots and things before we get to another, like, this is the main campaign that we're doing. This is it. This is the big one. Um, Although we'll have stuff going on. You hang in with us, and we will get you that content that you want. This has been pretty mellow, and it's been just me working through a lot of stuff in my that I've been thinking about. But thank you so much for watching. Hope that you are all taking care out there, especially everybody in the States who are having the most terrible spikes. It's so I'm so sorry. Um, we sometimes people can be a bit, associative of a country with its leaders, and it's no secret that I and the rest of us have not been. There's no polite way of saying it. Trump is horrific, but the American people are innocent and don't deserve the decision making of their leaders, and it's the amount of conflict that is going on. Oh, we all feel it. We all feel it, and it's so tragic and it's so horrible. And please stay safe as much as you can. Black Lives Matter. Justice for Regis Korchinski Paquette, and thank you so much to all the frontline workers and all the NHS and everybody working in healthcare. We're all doing our best to make it through. And there is good news about human tests for vaccine. So there is hope that this will get resolved soon. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Much love to everybody, and take care. Bye.